Okay, well, welcome once again, and of course we're coming to you live from the beautiful downtown L.A. Phillips Memorial Library and / taco stand. And of course this is the Cow Report, and today's date, Freddie, of all things, is May 1st, 1995.
Is that right?
And we're glad to have you with us today, Fred. I see that you're color coordinated to the T today.
Yes.
Now, you think we could get a little preview of that, because everything, even your tie down, the only thing that's a little bit off is your hat, but on occasion you wear socks to blend in with the hat. Your socks and your shoes are even coordinated with your suspenders, everything, Fred. I'll tell you, Betty did a great job today. That's amazing.
I think it's a great job.
And of course, Fred, we have the cow coffee cup here, and that was given to the show by a admirer of the program. And of course it's foreign, you can see, because it's got a left-handed handle on it.
Well, maybe it's for left-handed.
If you turn it right, you don't get to see the cow. Well, you get to see it while you're drinking, Fred, but your people don't get to see it. So there's your nice cow there.
Right.
All right, Freddie. That's good. What'd you put in that? Okay. All right, Fred. Well, being May Day, in this country it's Law Day, isn't it, Fred? May 1st?
That's also Loyalty Day.
Well, during the Cold War, you know, all the socialist utopias around the world had their May Day celebrations, and of course you saw the potentates and stuff at the mausoleum in Russia, and everyone would line up there. Unfortunately, Freddie,
Yes.
this year around, I don't even think they're going to have one, so Clinton can't go up there and stand up there with the rest of his buddies on May Day. So he's going on May 4th or 5th instead this year, instead of May 1st. But in this country, it's Law Day and Loyalty Day, right, Fred? And,
Yes.
well, that's good. Now, did any of the organizations you belong to have any programs today?
Well, the VFW Post 305 is having a Loyalty Day dinner.
Is that tonight?
Yes, tonight, and they're having, I believe, John Bowman speak.
Well, that sounds good. All right, now, Fred,
Yes.
you got a big event coming up, and I know you've been working in the background for several months on this. And it's the National Day of Prayer on Thursday. And so what is the event that you've been working on and running around and handing out bulletins? And
Going to be at the Eau Claire County Courthouse at 721 Oxford Avenue, Eau Claire, on Thursday, May 4th, 12:20 to 12:40 p.m. So, past VFW State Commander Arthur Schultz will be leading the salute to Old Glory and the Pledge of Allegiance. And Fritz Sepp of the DAV, he also belongs to the VFW and American Legion, will pray for the prisoners of war and those missing in action.
you know, that's from all the wars going back
Yes.
to at least World War I, huh?
Yes, and Bishop William Wantland of the Episcopal Diocese of Eau Claire will be praying, along with Father John Schultz, who is the Dean of the Eau Claire Deanery of the Catholic Church, Pastor John Wells of Chapel Heights Methodist, Pastor Mark Schultz of Peace Lutheran Church, and Assistant Pastor Paul Bennett of Pentecostal Assembly will lead the people in prayer. Now, one thing we're most interested in is a moral rebirth in America.
Okay, now normally, Fred, this has been at the local city hall over the past
Yes.
several years.
Yes,
But you kind of outgrew that. So where are you going to be again this year?
we're going to be at the courthouse.
That's the Eau Claire Courthouse.
Right on.
From 12:20 to
12:40.
12:40 this Thursday.
Yes.
This program is live today, so this is Monday, May 1st. So we're talking about this Thursday, Fred.
Yes.
Now, the program will last about 20 minutes. Then
Right.
people are free to leave, but other people
Yes.
can stay and pray and discuss other issues if they want, or
Yes, and we may even have a little music there.
little live music.
No, recorded music.
All right. Well, you have a speaker system, so there's no worry about
Yes,
not being heard if it's windy or whatever.
I got to check that out too to make sure that they're coming.
Because I know in the past, with all that traffic there and the wind and the flag whipping, you can hear that flag, all the noise. It was hard in the back when you get 200-300 people there in a small area. It was hard to hear. So hopefully that'll be solved this year. But this is a national. This is done all over the nation, Fred.
Right.
Now the Congress, I think Congress named it Thursday a National Day of Prayer, didn't they? Was it a joint resolution
I'm not sure about
signed?
that. I'm not
I think
sure
I read
about
that somewhere once. But anyway, this is the official National Day of Prayer. And there'll be programming all over the United States and foreign United States outposts all over the world, Fred. Guam
Yes.
and Puerto Rico and all the outposts around the world. Okay, Fred, well, now that once again is this Thursday, right?
Yes, May
Good.
4th, 12:20 to 12:40 at the courthouse at the entrance on Oxford Avenue.
Okay, Freddie, well, you know, on this program, besides taking calls from our loyal viewers, and our phone number will be coming up for calls here shortly, but Fred, you know, on this program, for years now, I've been trying to stump you on these questions of importance and on what happened this date in history.
Yes.
And you usually get them right. Once in a while, if you've had a sore tooth or an earache or something, you've been preoccupied with that, and you've partially gotten them right. But by and large, Fred, you're still batting better than anyone in the major leagues.
Hmm.
So here's to you, Fred.
Yeah.
All right. On this date, Fred, are you ready? Are you ready for this one?
Yes.
1931, New York City, May 1st, 1,250 feet tall. At that time, the world's largest building opens. You were there in 1931.
Yeah, that sounds like, wonder if it could be the Chrysler Building.
Before you give the answer, Fred, during the war, a plane crashed into the side of it.
Oh, that was the Empire State Building.
You're so very right, Fred. I'm glad you're still batting 1,000. All right. I thought for a minute there you were going to miss that one. Okay, Freddie. First one's in and out and solved, and we've taken care of that. Sounds like we have a bumblebee in the studio, Fred. Of course, there's a lot of construction down here because public access is moving in the next few months, Fred. They're going to move the whole studio and everything, lock, stock, and barrel, the flag, the lights, everything over to, where are they moving it to, Fred?
Moving over to, what do they call it, bank something place? The old Uniroyal factory.
Okay, Fred. I had a little froggy in my throat there.
Yes.
So what do you got there today, Fred? Let's get this ball rolling here. What do you got for something of interest?
Well, I think there's, it looks like we have some excellent candidates running in the Republican Party for the nomination for president. Bob Dornan, who has an excellent voting record, he has announced his presidential bid, and we also have Pat Buchanan, and we have Alan Keyes. So we got some well-qualified morally candidates, and if you aren't qualified morally, you're not going to be able to help our country very much, in my humble opinion.
What about Dick Lugar and Arlen Specter?
Well, Arlen Specter doesn't want any support apparently from the Christian right. And I believe that we need the Christian right and the principles they espouse.
Okay, Fred. Well, that's for sure, Fred. You know, in the Republican Party, there's a paradox, Fred. There's two opposing forces that belong in that are in that party, liberal and conservative forces, and they've been at times they've come together and elected 3 presidents in a row, and other times they've split apart and let Clinton come in.
Yes.
And before that, before Reagan was elected back in 76, they were divided and they let Carter come in.
Yes.
Other than that, the last 20 years have been pretty much a conservative 2 decades there. But the only way that a Republican president can be elected in 96 is for unity.
Yes.
The Republican Party has to unify around one candidate. If they don't, you're going to have Bill Clinton to the year 2000.
Yes. And that would be a disaster, I believe.
Mm-hmm. So hopefully the Republican Party is looking to mend fences, patch over cracks.
I believe that it's unwilling to do so, to be very frank with you.
Well, you don't have to be frank with me. I can be Chuck.
Yeah.
But they better get their act together, Fred, because Ross Perot's waiting in the wings.
Yes.
If he gets in, he could very well deliver the whole election to Bill Clinton. You know, Perot spent $70 million, Fred, to get 19% of the vote.
Yes.
Bill Clinton spent $90 million to get 43%. And the rest was George Bush. He spent $95 million and lost, coming second. So
he campaigned miserably, as far as I'm concerned.
with inflation and other things taken into consideration, Fred, if Ross Perot's people could pour $160 million in, Perot would be elected.
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to vote for him. I'll tell you that.
Okay, well, Fred, you could very well see Bob Dole and a moderate to liberal as his running mate. Outside chance, Colin Powell might be.
I wish him luck, but I don't think that's going to do it.
Okay, Fred, we're going to try the phones here and see what we got today in the way of phonage. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, gentlemen, good afternoon. In your opening statements, you made reference to this being May Day and Bill Clinton joining his, I believe you said, friends in the former Soviet Union. How do you back up that comment? Who are Bill Clinton's friends in the Soviet Union, and how have you discovered this?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. It's one of the better questions we've had, Fred.
Yes.
Well, we know, Fred, that Bill Clinton was a radical leftist during the Vietnam War.
Yes.
After he became governor
he went to Soviet Russia too.
He was put up in the finest hotels in Russia during the Vietnam War, and he plotted strategy for the European protests against the war. But even after he became governor of People's Republic of Arkansas, where he set up some communes and also private schools for the elitists that he was trying to create in his state, and where they were told to throw out all their preconceived notions of religion and sex, and because they were going to get brainwashed into the new way of thinking in this little private school. But also, Fred, Mr. Clinton went over to Italy and met with some communist economics people over there because he wanted to see an economic plan. He wanted to find a socialist economic plan that he thought he could implement in this country. So when the people he met with, when they told him that he was communist, that they were communists, and that he would probably be picked on or ridiculed for meeting with communists to plot strategy for economics, he said, no problem. His statement was, no problem. Let's get on with the issues. And so he was learning socialist and communist ways way before he became the United States' first bona fide socialist president.
Yes.
Now, what I mean by going over to Russia, he's been there before several times, but he was given the opportunity to attend the World War II celebrations that were being held in England. And when he refused to accept the invitation of the English government to attend that one and said he was going to attend the Russian celebration, he pretty much scuttled the European celebration that was going to be held in England, Fred. And so now it's been shifted to Russia, but Bill Clinton has sat with his hands folded and his thumbs twiddling while a country called Chechnya, which declared independence from Russia, is being totally wiped out, annihilated, atrocities, heavy carpet bombing of their cities, burning them out with flamethrowers, chopping their heads off, just total barbarianism by the Russian troops, Fred, against this little country of a couple million people in Chechnya, and there's over 1 million refugees now. Probably between 20 and 50,000 people have been killed since last fall. Bill Clinton's going to walk over those bodies to go to a little celebration in Moscow.
We're going to meet with Mr. Yeltsin, right?
Not only that, Fred, right today the former Soviet Union war power machine is building more machinery, more weapons of destruction than ever. They have decided to double their output of sales of their munitions to the world. They are the #1 pusher of munitions worldwide. They are in cahoots with North Korea. They're in cahoots with Iran. They're trying to build some nuclear power plants in Iran, which the byproducts can be used for nuclear weapons against Israel and against Iraq. It's totally going to destabilize that whole Middle East. But Clinton is not strong enough for these guys. Now, finally, over the weekend, in front of the National Jewish Congress, he gave a statement that he's going to cut off Iran, Fred.
Yeah.
Do you know that we buy more oil from Iran than anyone else in the world? Is he going to plunge us into another oil crisis? You better start buying your oil stock right now, because the price of oil could go up, especially when Iran responds to this, when they realize that that the commerce with the United States is going to be cut off, because Iran is our biggest trading partner. That's their biggest trading partner, is the United States, Fred.
Yes.
And all of a sudden we've got a threat over the weekend, or we have a statement that we're going to cut off all trade with Iran. Let's see if that means oil, Fred. Is this just a bluff, or is if this means oil, you can expect the price of gasoline to go up to $2 a gallon real quick here, because we'll have a worldwide oil crisis again, especially if the oil cartel gets into it. But my opinion personally of Bill Clinton is Bill Clinton is a socialist. He wants to implement socialist programs in this country. His wife is a socialist. She tried to take 1/7 of the nation's economy and the health care plan and socialize it. Even the liberal Democrats could not go along with that program, Fred. They chickened out at the last minute, scuttled her program, and it's laying shattered on the floors of Congress somewhere. It was never implemented. But if it was, Fred, it would have been just one big mess as far as health care in this country. We would have definitely not been the best health care program in the world.
Very true.
All right, Fred, so that's just a few. Now, what's your opinion? Are they communists or are they not?
I don't know if Bill Clinton is a communist, but he certainly has communist sympathies, which he's shown over the years. He's promoting them.
And you know, Fred, I belong to United We Stand, but ladies and gentlemen, you can thank Ross Perot and his party, United We Stand. They claim to be a neutral information service, Fred, but every time you turn around, they're promoting Ross Perot and his ideas. As far as I'm concerned, it's a party. The United We Stand party came in third in the elections, but on a silver platter, they delivered the 1994 presidential election to George Bush and to Bill Clinton and company, Fred. Otherwise, George Bush would have won by a landslide. Hands
I
down,
don't
Fred.
think he would have won by a landslide. To be very frank with you, if there had been a viable candidate, George Bush would not have been elected. Somebody else would have been elected.
Well, the Democrats picked the new Democrat, Clinton.
I know they did.
As soon as he got into office, he started putting all kinds of weirdos in places,
Sure.
in high places.
Right.
One of his weirdest of the weirdos is running for mayor of San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
She finally resigned and left. All right, Freddie. We better take another call here. We haven't taken a call for so long. We better take a call. But first, Fred, before I take line 2, it's time to ask you another quiz question.
Yes.
Now, this one here should be easy for you, Fred. As soon as I can find an easy one here. I saw one earlier that I was thinking about that you might be interested in answering. All right, Freddie. 1970, May 4th, this week. Matter of fact, it falls on the National Day of Prayer.
Uh-huh.
4 students are shot and killed by the National Guard troops during an anti-war demonstration.
That was at Kent University.
Kent State University in Ohio, 1970, 25 years ago, and it falls this year on Thursday, National Day of Prayer. So it'll do no good to pray for the dead, but I'm sure they've got families, and I know a few of those people ended up in wheelchairs that were shot that day. So we can pray for the people that shot them and the people that were wounded and got caught up in that whole deal.
Well, I think we should also pray for the people who lost their lives in Oklahoma City in the federal building there.
Well, we can pray for the
And
people
do
that
we-
are remaining
and
behind, Fred. The ones that
I
are
hope
dead are
they
dead. They
find
can't
out
hear you.
who actually is responsible for that and justly is punished.
Yep, okay. That's for sure. All right. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Howdy, Chuck.
Hi, how you doing?
Pretty good. I'd just like to make about 3 points here.
All right.
One, I agree with you morally 100%.
Okay.
Politically, we are in opposite directions totally.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a dichotomy, I realize, but that's the way it is. Bill Clinton and Hillary are no more socialist than you are. And you also got something wrong a while ago when you said that Reagan was elected in 76. He wasn't. Carter was elected in 76. Reagan didn't get elected till 80.
Yes, I know. I didn't say Reagan was elected in 76. I
Well,
said
you did. I'm sitting here right in front of my television.
Okay, what I said was the Republicans split in 76 and
Okay.
Jimmy Carter was elected.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. Anyway, I do agree with you morally. I'm 100% on your side morally, and I'm 100% opposed to you politically, whatever that's worth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Well,
For listening to me.
we appreciate those kind of calls, Fred. You know what? Thanks a lot for calling.
Thank you now.
Well, you know, Fred, I'm probably no more moral or no less moral than 95% of the people in this country. But there are just basic things, Fred, that we learn as we're growing up, and they're still taught in the school systems of right and wrong. And you know, it's wrong to kill somebody, and it's wrong to, and so we can't, there's no way, Fred, that we can ever justify what happened in Oklahoma City, right?
Yes.
Now, the people that are dead out there that will go over 200. They leave behind thousands of relatives and close friends. It's right in the heartland of the United States of America, Fred. So it was a blow to the whole country. It brings home the fact loud and clear that this country is not immune from the terrorism that we've seen worldwide. One of the reasons Bill Clinton's cutting off aid to Iran is because they sponsor terrorism around the world. We saw earlier the Twin Towers there in New York City. A few more pounds of fertilizer in that bomb, Fred, and those towers would have toppled over and killed thousands and thousands of people that were inside the building at the time. Those 2 towers would have totally fell over, Fred. That's how close they came to blowing away the supports underneath. And that's what's happening out there in Oklahoma City. The supports are so weak now that that's why it's taken almost 2 weeks to get the bodies out of there. But Fred, there's a lot of misery over this thing in Oklahoma. There's a lot of misery to what happened in Waco, Texas 2 years ago. A lot of misery in what happened 3 years ago in April out in Los Angeles and the riots.
You know, the reason I think that at least this McVeigh acted was because of the injustice of Waco. And whoever ordered that raid there should be punished because they're guilty of murdering a number of children as well as their parents.
Well, Fred, you know, the grieving process over Waco lasted, what, 50 days? There was a siege there, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
But then there wasn't a finality to it because the bodies were kind of like evidence. They were carted off to the morgue, and some of those bodies, quite a bit of those bodies, were fused together. They never could identify who they were. I think they were buried in a mass grave eventually. But we're seeing the grieving process played out now in Oklahoma City, but that's another wound in the body politic of the United States, Fred.
Yes.
We've had about 4 major wounds, or 5 if you want to count the floods. There was a lot of devastation. 6 if you want to count the hurricane in Florida, all that devastation. The LA riots, mass destruction and death there. Waco, the New York tower bombing, and now Oklahoma City, Fred. This is, we're not in Camelot anymore. We're not in Leave It to Beaver land anymore, Fred. The United States is rapidly waking up to the fact that we have serious problems. And you know what they're doing in Canada to solve it, Fred? It looks like there's a new sweeping gun law going to pass in Canada, draconian measures to pretty much remove most firearms from the country of Canada. And so there's quite a bit of talk about that up there right now, Fred. There's 7 million guns in Canada, and they hope to have restrict ammunition sales and require registration of all 7 million of them, handguns, rifles, and shotguns by the year 2002.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll know where every one of them's at if they ever have to confiscate them. Now that was one of the cornerstones of the former Soviet Union, is to know where every gun, pistol, or shotgun, machine gun was at in the whole country, the whole nation, the whole former Soviet Union, all the nations that were in that union. And if there was any hint of trouble, Fred, they called in all the guns that were properly certified and registered. Even the farmers with the shotguns had to turn them in at the local police stations. So anyway, Fred, we're seeing this come upon Canada real quick, and now we see where the United States Senate is backing off from trying to reintroduce take away the ban on so-called assault rifles in this country, which a lot of them look fearful because they're painted black and they have fancy stocks on them, but some of the other guns that they didn't ban are just exactly have the same firepower and the same ability to kill you. But that's the way things are, Fred. But now most of your senators and congressmen are backing off from that. And of course, there's a lot of fear out there amongst the elected officials right now on which way to be on all the issues that are coming to the surface. But the bottom line is, Fred, what happened April 19th, 1995, puts Bill Clinton squarely back into the race for presidency in 1996. And he will build his support on that base. And so, we're going to take a call and see what's happening out there in TV land. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering if you think they'll ever legalize marijuana.
Where at?
In the United States.
Okay, Fred, what do you think about that?
I think it would be a great mistake.
Why?
Well, I've known some people who have used marijuana, and that was a stepping stone
Have
to
you?
them taking other drugs. No, I have not touched that stuff.
Have you, Junk?
If you're referring to me, yeah, I've smoked it.
Good for you.
Have you?
All the time.
Why would you want to legalize? What's your reasoning?
I don't know. Just think it'd make the world a better place.
Well,
It's already readily available. Has it made the world a better place? Whether it's
I don't
legal,
know.
whether-
It might have. I'm not sure.
I mean, pretty much anyone in this town, if they looked for a day or two, I'm sure they could find all the marijuana they want. So has it really made the United States or the state of Wisconsin or the world a better place? It's been legal. It's been available in most countries of the world for thousands of years. Matter of fact, marijuana seeds were found in the pyramids over in Egypt. So it has been cultivated and used for fiber and writing and clothing and as a way of altering your personality and a form of an intoxicant for thousands of years. But the bottom line is it hasn't made it a better place to live on the earth.
Okay.
I know it's helped to kill some people too.
Well, yeah, there's bodies laying between here and Columbia that directly involved with the trafficking
Well,
of marijuana from
I'm
there to here.
thinking about the men that are here that started off on marijuana and then went on to harder drugs and are no longer with us.
Fred, when the Colombians first started taking over the marijuana trade in Florida and they started moving in, any opposition was met with machine guns and machetes. You were chopped up in little pieces and thrown out of vehicles and buried in the swamps, and that's how the Colombians pushed their way in and took over the Colombian marijuana traffic and the trade and controlled it from the United States all the way back to the fields where it was grown. Because at one time they had to rely on Americans to distribute it and get it into this country. Well, they pretty much took over all ends of it from the point of planting it to the point of distribution, and many people lost their lives or were chased off or killed or maimed because of what they did there. And we've seen that happen by and large with every new drug that's been introduced into the underground. We've seen or new groups that have come in and wanted to muscle into the drug trafficking area. We've seen death and destruction. So I would say that legal or not, marijuana has caused more harm than good. And do we want a third drug out there that causes problems?
Yeah, I got one more question too. What is that thing on your head?
Okay, that there is a World War I helmet that was unearthed over in the Netherlands, Fred. After World War I, they found it outside of one of the trenches over there. I think could be German in origin. We haven't figured out for sure exactly, but it is an antique, Fred, and we try to have different hats on this program, Fred. I noticed today that you have a colorful Knights of Columbus hat.
Yes.
Okay. So today I'm wearing this World War I. I think it's a trench warfare hat. And somebody was saying, Fred, that they had a little tripod up here, and they had a little monkey that sat up there with a periscope, and he could look up over the trench to see if the enemy was attacking. And then he had a little chain hooked to his belt, and he would pull on the chain and let the guy know wearing the hat if the opposing forces were attacking, Fred. And that's before they had modern airplanes and stuff, during the trench warfare of World War I. So he would sit right up in this little area up here with his periscope, and he would point it out there over the trench, and that way the soldier wouldn't get shot, but they could tell if the opposing forces were attacking. That's the most plausible thing that I've heard with this hat, Fred. And it is all metal. And I imagine several bullets have glanced off this.
Is that center of it hollow? No, up at the top.
Well, that's where the monkey would sit in there, Fred.
Well, that also, if a bullet went in there too, it would be on the
Well, it's got a rim.
right straight through.
It's got a rim right here for the monkey to duck down in there when he's not looking out.
What kind of monkeys is that small?
Well, you remember the old organ grinder monkeys that they had
They're much bigger than that.
over in the old Frankenstein movies and stuff over
I
in
saw them in New York
Transylvania?
City. They used to come around and play them in the streets.
Well, anyway, that's the most plausible thing that we've come up with, Fred. So we better take another call while you're getting ready for another bit of news there. Quit looking at your schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for a minute you're going to pull out your checkbook. You've been washing your glasses. You've fixed up your schedule. I figure you're going to pull out your checkbook and rectify your checking account there while we're on the air.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, I was wondering if Fred has ever wanted to smoke marijuana.
Never.
Why haven't you wanted to?
Well, when I was a kid and I was about 18 years old or maybe 19, I read a book about drug addicts and the hell that they went through. And boy, I said, that's not for me. So when I went to a fraternity dance, an NYU fraternity dance in New York City, downtown, I noticed that they were going into one of the rooms in the back, and I wondered what was going on there, and sure enough, they weren't smoking marijuana, they were sniffing cocaine. And I said, boy, I'm going to get out of here. And I left that dance even though I had paid for myself and my girlfriend to attend.
You need to tell me, Fred, living in New York City where a lot of these drugs originated and got into our popular culture back in the 30s, and Cab Calloway and all that, and Reefer Man and stuff, you mean to tell me that you go into those dances and stuff, you didn't smell the smell of rope burning in alleyways and stuff?
I didn't smell it.
Huh.
No.
Have you ever you think they're going to lower the limit on it, or like make it legal?
I wouldn't be opposed to the laws that are clogging our prisons and our courts and busting 12, 13-year-old kids with about as much as you can fit in the palm of your hand and ruining their lives and stuff. We got better things, bigger fish to fry than busting little kids that are experimenting with marijuana. But on the other hand, it is a potent enough drug that it doesn't need to be legalized. But some of the criminal penalties against it need to be softened, and we need to get it more into the counseling area and treatment area and less in the criminal area, and quit clogging up our courts all over the nation with marijuana, and let's get down to the hardcore drugs like the amphetamines and the LSD and the cocaine
Have you ever tried that stuff?
and the heroin that's out there.
Because they said you tried that marijuana earlier.
I have dabbled with some of the other drugs in my youth,
Ooh. Okay.
but that's the nature of these drugs, Fred. They get into an area and you see experimentation because they're readily available. Like I was saying once on this show, I don't care who you are, Fred. If you drop 20 pounds or 20 kilos of pure heroin or pure cocaine in the slums of New York or Chicago or Milwaukee, you're going to have people that are willing to sell it because people need money to pay their bills and they need money to buy food. And you got to stop it from being dumped in the street corners there so people are fighting over it and killing each other over it. Stop it before it ever gets in the country.
Yes.
That's where I totally agree with Buck Buchanan, Pat Buchanan, who's running for president. He says, let's stop it at the borders. Let's close these borders off. Let's get rid of let's stop the illegal aliens that are flowing in here by the thousands each night and who are also bringing in heroin and other drugs with them as they come in because they use the drugs as a form of barter to get set up in this country. And, you know, if they can carry a pound of heroin, Mexican brown heroin, or a couple pounds of marijuana with them when they're crossing the border, then that'll pay for their getting into the interior of the country and setting up a lifestyle in this country. But Fred, we've got some serious problems on that southern border, and one of the major ones that has been is this so-called war against drugs. It's not even we're using pop guns and they're using fully automatic machine guns. That's the kind of war we're fighting, Fred. It's not a war. It's this country's the laughing stock of the world. All the drug-producing countries in the world are dumping drugs in here. The mafia is up to their neck in the drug trafficking in this country, Fred. The Mexicans, the Colombians, the Peruvians, the Afghanistanis, the Russians, the Far East, over in Burma and Thailand, that area, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, the Thais. They're bringing in drugs here by the tons, Fred.
I know.
Dumping them on our youth. And we wonder why we got the problems we've got in this country with crime and hate and we're destroying ourselves from within, and like the communist said, that ripe apple will fall off the tree and fall into our hands. And that's what they're doing, is they're trying to rot. It won't even be ripe, it'll be rotten, and it'll fall into the hands of the Soviets because we're destroying ourselves from within.
Well, I think we should use the head that God gave us and stay away from that stuff.
Fred, it's not that easy. When you got peer pressure, you got readily available, you got it on. I mean, it's not that hard to find cocaine in Eau Claire, Fred. It's not that hard to find marijuana, LSD. Heroin an ounce of heroin, almost pure, was found here in Eau Claire not too many weeks ago.
Yeah.
With Highway 94 out there, you got the world at your fingertips, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
And with Lake Superior right up above us here, a couple hundred miles north of us, you got drugs coming in from all over the world. So we've got to shut off the borders, Fred.
I agree.
Less pressure on the little guy down at the bottom that's trying to make a few bucks selling a couple joints. More pressure at the top with the diplomats and the other people that are in cahoots bringing this stuff into the country, and the border guards that's being bought off on both sides of the border, and the attorneys and the sheriffs and the mayors and the DEA agents that are rogues that are out there that are involved in it.
Yes.
And the former military people, and they're flying it in. Used to fly it right into Clinton's backyard, Mena, Arkansas. We've got to cut this stuff off once it crosses that border, Fred. And if that plane won't identify itself, shoot it down. If they're not willing to tell who they are, they're either the enemy bringing in bombs or the enemy bringing in drugs. And whether they're domestic enemy or foreign enemy, they're enemies of this country if they're trying to poison our youth. All right, Freddie. So there you have it. So next time somebody offers you marijuana, Fred, what are you going to say?
No, no, no. 1,000 times no, no.
That's right. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I was wondering if, like, you or Fred have ever experimented with hog cigarettes.
What?
Have you ever experimented with hog cigarettes, Fred?
Well, I've ate smoked ham, smoked sausage.
You know, some religions say you shouldn't be eating that ham either, Fred.
I know.
Make your head swim.
I know.
Besides that, some of that pork has worms in it.
I know.
I remember when I was a young man trying to convince my grandfather of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, Grandpa, I just read an article about worms in pork that was taken on a excursion up in the North Pole. This is back in the 20s or 30s, and the people that took this pork product with them, the pork had worms in it. And the people that were on the expedition ate the pork, the worms got in there and killed them. When they did autopsies on them later, they found that they were full of worms, Fred.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to make sure you cook that pork out there, folks, if you're going to have to eat that stuff.
Yes.
If you're going to eat that pork, make sure it's cooked. Don't be having sushi pork out there. Stuff will get you. There's worms in it.
Mm-hmm.
Fully cook your pork. All right. I don't know how many times we've had to tell people, Fred, to cook the pork. Have you got something there to talk about before we take the call?
Sure.
We've got a paragraph there.
I got one that's interesting, or a couple that are interesting. Congressman Ernest Istook, Republican of Oklahoma, is preparing a religious equality amendment which allows religious speech such as prayer to be permitted whenever non-religious speech is allowed. The Jewish Forward reports that the American Jewish Congress and the National Jewish Democratic Committee have already expressed their opposition to Congressman Istook's proposal.
Well, that's good, Fred. I'm glad to hear that they're doing something about that.
And I also see that prominent Jewish activist Hyman Bookbinder attacks Jewish writer and editor Norman Podhoretz in April 14th Jewish Forward for the latter's criticism of some Jewish persons. And he, quote, said, "Think that Moses came down from the mountain with only 2 commandments, gay rights, and abortion on demand, unquote.
Well, you know, Fred,
And that's from the Wanderer, a Catholic lay paper from St. Paul.
you know, Fred, if we would quit using these labels, as you were reading that, every other word was Jewish this and Jewish that. What does it matter if they're Jewish or not for? They're human beings. And it's like we say black Americans. We don't go around saying, well, Fred Stafford, Irish American.
No, you don't, but I wouldn't be ashamed if you did call me an Irish American.
We don't go around saying Fred Stafford, Caucasian.
All right? But this is factual.
I know it's in there, Fred, but that doesn't make it right. We do that all the time, though, and that in another way that tends to segregate people and separate them from other people.
Well, it's true,
When we
though,
say Korean Americans
those
or
people
Hmong.
are working against something that we support.
I know, but when we say Korean Americans, Hmong Americans, Japanese Americans, Vietnamese Americans, you know,
Mm-hmm.
let's do like Rodney King says and just, why can't we all just get along?
Yeah.
Okay, let's take another call. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just have a comment about that last guy that called about legalizing marijuana. I don't see really nothing wrong with doing that, because they say that the only reason they don't want to legalize it is because it adds up to bigger drugs. That's the main problem, they say. What do you think about that, Chuck?
Well, in some cases it does. It is one of the threshold drugs, but so are cigarettes, alcohol, and chewing tobacco. They're threshold drugs, too, that lead some people into a lifetime of drug addiction and misery and death from things like cigarettes. But so we don't really want another drug out there that could cause some problems in society. Sure, we've got it out there, but what's holding back the floodgate now is that it is illegal, and we've got cigarettes out there that are taking upwards of 400,000 people's lives every year. We've got alcohol out there that causes multi-thousands of deaths each year from one thing or another. It fills up the prisons from what people do while they're under the influence of alcohol. So we got to be careful when we talk about lowering drinking ages or legalizing more drugs. We got enough drug problems now to fill every hospital in the United States. If we went out and rounded up all the drug addicts, we've probably got over 1 million heroin addicts in this country. That's one out of every 250 people.
Yeah, but I haven't seen any heroin around here, whatsoever. Just mainly marijuana.
There's heroin in Eau Claire, and it's been smuggled in here, and people have been arrested for it.
Well, I know it's around, but it's not, as common as pot or stuff like that.
Well,
Thank God for that.
Yeah, that's good.
opium is a derivative of heroin, and there's plenty of opium in certain parts of the community. It's brought in from overseas, from the Far East, right in the Asian areas.
And even mailed into Eau Claire.
But it's also being brought in from Minneapolis, St. Paul, and from Chicago. It's one of those things that you cultivate, though. If I push it long enough, I'll have myself, me personally, I would have myself 25 or 30 addicts that would be coming to me looking for it. So that's what we want to stop. We want to stop it at the borders before it ever gets in here, so that a drug pusher wouldn't be able to cultivate the 25 or 30 personal addicts that he's supplying. That's what we want to keep from happening in this area. And we've been fortunate in Eau Claire, Fred. It's one of the safest places in the United States. And it has a low crime rate, and we want to keep it that way. Just because South Minneapolis is a cesspool, we don't have to have South Eau Claire as a cesspool also. So thanks a lot for calling in there. All right, Freddie. I had something here I want to talk about. Now, I'm not saying that this is 100% valid, because the people that I'm going to be reading about here have not admitted to it, Fred, but something of major importance happened April 17th, according to this news source that I was emailed from a group called Citizens Committee to Clean Up the Courts. It comes out of Chicago. A guy named Sherman Skolnick. Probably remember him from the conspiracy theories of the Kennedy assassination, and he was one of the main players back during the Vietnam conflict. But anyway, Fred, according to his sources, on Monday, April 17th, which is 2 weeks ago today, The federal grand jury in Little Rock, Arkansas handed up 16 sealed grand jury indictments. According to those close to the matters, among those reportedly named, Jim Guy Tucker, current Arkansas governor, reportedly charged with bank fraud. Thomas Mack McClarty, Clinton White House counsel and former White House chief of staff and previously CEO of Arkla, one of the largest natural gas public utility firms, and Hillary Rodham Clinton, the First Lady, were all indicted, reportedly charged with 2 counts of federal criminal offenses. Number 1, bank fraud, causing the loss of or misapplication of between $47 million and $60 million of federally insured funds from Madison Guaranteed Savings and Loan. And the second charge, obstructing of justice. Hillary reportedly ordered Webster Hubbell, while he was third in command of the Justice Department, to remove documents from the office of White House aide Vincent Foster Jr., a federal magistrate, by a federal magistrate to Little Rock, to be turned over to federal authorities in the then pending criminal case U.S. versus David Hale, a former Arkansas municipal judge accused of defrauding the Small Business Administration. Hubbell was ordered to deliver, or caused to be delivered, such records to the private White House quarters of Hillary Clinton. She later ordered Hubbell to arrange for the destruction of those records, Fred. Hillary had them hid in her closet after Foster committed suicide. They went down and ransacked his White House office, took all the pertinent papers to the investigation that's been ongoing for several months, and ran them up to Hillary's closet, hid them there. Well, Webb Hubbell's job was to get them out of there and get them destroyed. Well, after Webster Hubbell resigned from the Justice Department, Hubbell entered, he was supposedly supposed to destroy those. Hubbell entered into a guilty plea with the independent prosecutor Kenneth Starr to federal charges against Hubbell. Part of the plea bargain required that Hubbell fully cooperate in the ongoing Whitewater probe. Pursuant to that, Hubbell turned over the Foster records to the grand jury in Little Rock, Arkansas. And that grand jury on April 17th handed down a 16-count indictment. One of those indicted is the sitting governor of Arkansas, and the other one is the wife of the President of the United States. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, I'd like to add some comments to about the marijuana drug scene and all that. Number one would be about the government. Now, you think about cigarettes. They are trying to push cigarettes out of the scenes. So either you think about it, that marijuana would be actually pushed out, would never even be legalized in the United States.
You think about it this way. After you've seen what the ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, has done in the last 10 years, and their overzealous punishment and illegal searches and stepping on people's civil rights in their raids, their show raids, do you actually want the Bureau of ATF, who bust a raid in Waco, Texas, do you want them in charge of marijuana? Because that's where it would fall under.
Well, marijuana would be pushed out of the scene anyway, because, well, marijuana and all the other drugs would be around for, until year 2010, basically. But, you think about this, like tobacco. Now, they had banned cigarette tobacco commercials off the TV, and then now you got alcohol on TV. Now, which one kills more, cigarettes or the alcohol?
They both do.
Now, you get more killing from drinking and driving than what you get on, people smoking cigarettes.
No, you don't. You got 400,000 people dying directly from cigarette abuse, tobacco abuse in this country. They're dying from the various poisons in tobacco. The reason that we continue to allow tobacco to be grown and produced into cigarettes and chewing tobacco is because it's a major moneymaker for several large companies who also funnel millions of dollars into the coffers of politicians. They've bought off dozens of politicians nationwide. Cigarettes are big business worldwide. And even though the tobacco consumption in this country is declining, overall, worldwide, it is increasing at an alarming rate because we don't have because the advertising restrictions in this country are not in place in other countries around the world, and the warnings. So other parts of the world, mainly the Asian countries, are really rapidly swooping down, grabbing up all the cigarettes that America can produce. So now we're exporting our death and destruction all over the world legally. But it is a major revenue source for the government of this country, and that's why we have a whole agency. One of their main purposes of survival, of existence, is to make sure that those cigarettes are not sold illegally and those tobacco products have the proper stamps and are sold properly in this country because of the major revenue that is generated.
Do you think that tobacco will be banned sooner or later?
There's too many powerful people involved in the cigarette industry. They control too many senators, congressmen. We had, even in this state, we had Steve Gunderson taking tobacco money right here in the 3rd District.
Yeah, that's right.
Far, thousands of miles away from the main tobacco growing areas of this country. So
they grow tobacco down in around Viroqua and so forth.
So the tentacles reach way out there with the cigarettes all over the world, and it's a major source of income for this government. And so do you want to legalize marijuana and turn the enforcement of it over to the people that brought you Waco and Randy Weaver and several other abusive raids?
And then if they do legalize marijuana, wouldn't they be able to open up a great big door for economy-wise, but to be just like having, drinking beer. If you smoke a joint, you won't be able to drive. Then they have to get some more cops out there to figure out who's, smoking and driving, basically.
Well, there would be testing done to see if you're under the influence of marijuana. You can easily be given tests, just like you're given a test to see if you're under the influence of alcohol when you're driving. But once you legalize marijuana, then what's going to be the legal age to smoke it? 16, 18, 21?
Probably 21, I think.
And then if it's 21, how soon before the 18-year-olds are going to want it, and they're going to demand it to be lowered to 18 because they can go fight and die in wars,
yeah.
And by God, they should be able to smoke marijuana.
Yeah.
While they're shooting off their machine guns at other people.
Yeah, that's true, huh?
So you're going to have the same problems you got with alcohol. Now they want to lower the drinking age to 19.
Yeah.
So you're going to see the same things happen with marijuana. So we got to go slowly on it. But first of all, they got to start lifting some of the heavy fines and penalties for the use and experimentation with marijuana, and then we'll see what happens after that. But let's unclog the court system so that we can deal with the major violators of the importation laws for the heavier drugs that are being flooded into this country. Almost pure cocaine and pure heroin is being brought into this country now. And what you're seeing is people like Kurt Cobain and River Phoenix fall over dead because they're not used to the purity of the stuff that's coming in. And purity means quality and quantity go together. The higher the quality, the more quantity there is. When there's less of it on the streets, you see 20, 30% purity. When there's a lot of it on the streets, you see 80 and 90%. So that tells you that there's a lot of it on the streets in the United States. So, thanks a lot for calling in, Fred. And you know something?
Yeah.
The old bell, the old clock on the wall, once again tells us
National Day of Prayer at Eau Claire County Courthouse on Thursday, May 4th, 12:20 to 12:40 p.m.
Well, we want to thank you all for tuning in to the Cow Report, and we'll see you right here next week, next Monday evening at 9 p.m. Fred, you got a show coming, so adios. We'll see you again next week.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
I have one coming on May 15th.